Hello, everyone. So now I would like to welcome Stuti Singh, our next speaker. Welcome to our session, and I hope you're doing well today. Stuti is going to speak on wonderful topic, Speak Without Fear. Stuti is founder of a Life Without Fear. She holds an honors degree to psychology and MBA in International Business School. Is also trained in intuitive mastery, and she has worked with leaders, students, and change makers at the global multinationals, small enterprise, and also NGOs. So, Stuti, the stage is yours.
Urvashi, thank you so much for that warm welcome and that introduction. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. And as you kindly said in your introduction already, I have about 20 years of experience when I was working as a consultant in various companies around the world. And interestingly enough, though my background is not in tech, I had several roles that required me to lead tech projects as well. So not entirely a stranger to this brilliant industry, which of course is even enabling the fact that we can do this today and connect in these times also. So really happy to be here. And perhaps some of you in the audience might know this about me already, but I didn't start my career doing what I do now from the very beginning. You know, I always had an interest in the human journey and what makes us who we are. But I applied that to enabling people and organizations and teams in companies like, GSK, Unilever, Pfizer. And I really enjoyed what I did. I thought, a very, fulfilling career, some great roles, great teams I worked with. Of course, I'd been through ups and downs in my career as well. But there came a time about 5 years ago when I'd started to feel like there was something more to me. There was more that I wanted to express. There was more that I wanted to do. And I felt like I was stagnating in certain areas of my life, but I couldn't put a finger on it yet. About 4 years ago, a life without fear as it is today was started to be born. I made the brave decision, sort of the opposite of what we're here talking about in Tech Jobs Fair. I made the decision to leave a great role that I was in because I was being called to go and explore some parts of the world. In the summer of 2017, I wanted to go to an event in Los Angeles. I wanted to go to a conference in Colombia. I wanted to travel in Africa and spend 1 month in the summer with my family around Europe. Of course, there was a voice of reason, in fact, a voice of fear holding me back and saying, how can you do this? I did it nonetheless, and my life changed. And the reason I share that story with you today, it was during that time, and I can still remember I was on a boat off the coast of Southern California with a much older friend when it suddenly hit me. Everything that had held me back in my life, whether that was in my career, a promotion I didn't go for, a job I didn't get, an idea I didn't bring to fruition or didn't express, whether that was in my personal life or my relationships, and even my health and well-being. I had this aha moment that fundamentally the thing that had limited me had always been a form of fear. It had always been something that I did or didn't do because unconsciously, sometimes not even knowingly, I was afraid and I was holding back on my expression. In other words, I was speaking and being from fear. This realization changed my life, of course, as we now know. But at the time, I started to note the big and small ways in which I was speaking from fear, or sometimes not speaking at all. And one of the stories that I love to share is this time when I was at a conference and I was working on a task. We were 4 people in a group. We had about 2 or 3 hours to complete a task that we'd been given. And we'd got about halfway through, and I really needed to go to the loo, as one does. But there I was, not realizing that instead of saying I want to go to the loo, I turned to the person to my left and said, "Hey, we've been going a long time. You must be tired. Shall we take a break?" And they said, "No, I'm fine." I turned to the person on my right and said, "Hey, do you fancy getting a coffee?" And they said, "No, I'm still good to go." I turned to the person, I looked at the person straight in front of me and I said, "How about you? Shall we have a quick break before we continue again?" And fortunately for me, this person called me on it and they said, "If you need to go to the loo, why don't you just say you need to go to the loo?" And yes, of course, it was that simple. But something in me was stopping me even from expressing a very basic need. Why? There's a part of me that likes to think of myself as a very nice person, somebody who is not a disruptor, somebody who's easy to get along with. And not knowing this at the time, what I was doing was acting from a fear that if I asked for what I wanted, even if I expressed a very basic biological need, I would in fact not be this person that I thought I was or should be. And in fact, I might not be appreciated by the group for being this disruptor. So there I was holding it in. Now that's a funny story, and I share that often with people when I talk about how we hold ourselves back. But every time we speak from fear, what we are doing is not just holding back our expression. It's not just the things we're not saying, but we are impacting our lives. We are impacting our health and well-being. When we don't say no to those 5 things that we know are too much of a burden right now, we impact our relationships. When we don't honestly express how we feel and what our needs are, we even impact our results when we don't express the idea that we know is in the better interest of the company. Why do we do it then? If it's so limiting, why do we allow ourselves to speak from fear without even knowing it? The human mind is a funny thing. It's a brilliant tool of evolution. It's a brilliant thing that our minds do, which is we like to make meaning of things. We like to categorize things into how they are and how they should be. Because when we know that, we can best guarantee our chance for safety, for survival. I know how it is. I know nothing's going to jump out of the long grass and come and eat me. I know how it should be. I know that people should like me and everybody should be friendly. And that's when I know I'm safe in that environment. It may even be the opposite, by the way. Sometimes it may be, I know that people shouldn't like me because then I can keep them at a distance. And then I'm safe, I won't get hurt. So we naturally, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, we like to secure unconsciously our best chances for survival. And the way we do this is by looking at what things in our environment mean. And when we meet other people, without knowing it, we are assessing them in the same way. They just said this. What does this mean about them? They didn't do that. What does this mean about them? Are they a good person? Are they a bad person? Are they an important person? Are they a judgmental person? What does it mean about me? If I say this or I don't say it, does it make me a bad person if I put my needs first? Does it make me an imposter if I express an idea that's beyond my current role? What does it mean about me? And what do I need to do to ensure my best chances of getting what I would want? So how do I have to be in this situation? Have you ever noticed that how we perceive someone often changes our behavior towards them, but even how we feel inside us when we are with them? Imagine meeting somebody in a pub You don't know who they are. You've just met them for the first time. You have a great conversation. You're really relaxed. You tell them about your holiday. You tell them about, your messy husband. You tell them how your dog doesn't let you do your work when it needs to go out for a walk. You're honest with them. And then you go along to, say, a recruitment conference, and you find out that they are the CEO of a company that you would love to work with. Do you see them differently? Does something change? Do you now believe you have to speak differently? You have to express yourself differently? There are sides of you that you shouldn't show. And what if you already had in your mind that people who are in a certain position are a certain way, and therefore you have to be a certain way? I have a great example of one time, or perhaps over a period of a year, when I was in between roles, and I'd taken a little bit of a career break at the time, but I was looking for my next role. And try as hard as I could, I just wasn't landing that role. I had positive responses, I had interviews, but I just wasn't getting that role. And all the time I realized, I was going into these interviews very prepared and very professional, all good things, nothing wrong with that. But I knew I really needed that job, and I really wanted to work with this company. So how did I have to be? I had to show them that I was really smart. When they'd, invite me to the second interview and ask for ideas on what I would do for the company, I had to come up with really innovative things and show them how brilliant I was. Well, I was doing all that, but it didn't work. And then there came, around the same time that I came to the realizations that I'm sharing with you now, I had another interview. For this one, I decided, if I am the right fit for them and they are the right fit for me, let it work. I took the pressure off me. You can probably guess where the story is going. I did get hired into that role. But what was even more interesting to me is what the hiring manager said to me. They said to me at the end of the interview, while I was still in the room with them, they said, I don't normally do this, but you're exactly the kind of person we need. And of course, I'm going to go back and check with my line manager, but if everything's in order, we'd love to have you in the role. And then they said, I can see you have the experience. I can see that on your CV. But what we really need is somebody like you, somebody who is calm and is able to talk to different people. We're in a crisis situation at the moment, and that's what we need. It was a wake-up call for me. It was the first time, or so I thought, that I was being brought into an organization and a team for who I was. Not for all that I could show that I could do, which of course I can do. The thing that was different in this interview is I didn't go in there trying to impress them. I went in there with an open mind to say, perhaps it'll work, perhaps it won't. Let's have a conversation now. Effectively, I was in a professional version of that pub with that hiring manager. We had a conversation. And it could have gone the other way. But this was the first time that I decided I wasn't going to manipulate. Essentially, that's what we do. Here's my learning. When we speak from fear, we try to control the impression that we give someone else of us. We like to know how we are going to be seen so that they see us the way we want to be seen, and of course, we get what we want. So in trying to create our best impressions sometimes, we forget to share who we really are. And we try to control others and their impression of us in one of two ways. Often, we'll try to overexert our authority, show how brilliant we are, be really smart and capable and the best. And often in other situations, we'll even underexert our authority because that's how we're appreciated and approved of when we're not troublemakers, when we're quiet. But in both of these cases, we are not speaking powerfully, authentically, or even sometimes directly. So, how do we move away from this? The answer actually is really, really simple. And of course, when I do workshops, speaker workshops, we look at this even in the body, how to even take this across our whole body. But the key really is to be open, to be in touch with what we would love, but to be open to how it comes about, to be open to having a conversation, to be open to really seeing the other person and their needs, to be open to seeing ourselves and our needs and our gifts and qualities too, and also our boundaries. And sounds really simple, but of course it's often easier said than done. So here are the 4 takeaways that I'd like to leave you with. 4 simple things that you can notice and start to do today to speak without fear. The first one, and in my journey, this one came perhaps the easiest to me. The first thing is to say yes. If there's something you would love, say yes, without hesitation, without apology, without guilt, without rationalization. If somebody offers you an opportunity that you would love, say yes. You find an idea that looks interesting, say yes. You don't know how it'll work out, but you're open. The second thing to do is to say no. We cannot honor all our yeses if we don't also honor the no's. Say no to what doesn't serve you. Say no to what doesn't work. Say no to something that's beyond your boundaries and is not in line with who you are. It's okay. We don't have to be anybody but ourselves. And there will be things that we don't agree with that aren't right for us. And it's okay to express that too. The third thing is to ask. This is probably one of the hardest ones for me to do. It's a journey. Living a life without fear is a journey. Ask for what you love, but ask with an open heart and an open mind. I know people who ask very awkwardly, with a lot of guilt and a lot of fear, and I can even sense it in their ask, and it doesn't create that connection. It's a desperation. Once again, it's a form of control. Ask, but also don't overexert your authority when you ask. I also know people, and I get contacted nearly every day by somebody who's asking me for something, but they're demanding it. Or even worse, they're not being authentic about why they're reaching out to me. They're manipulating me, remember, managing their impression that I will have. And then they want to ask what they want because, again, from fear, we believe that secures the best outcome. So ask for what you would love, but with an open mind. Nothing has to be. There's no one way to success. There's no one way to create what we love. The world is open. It's full of possibilities. So ask, but with an open heart and an open mind. And the final one, and this is probably the antidote to fear, is to give. Give what you would love to give. Not because of what's going to come out of it, not because of what you will get back. Give freely. Don't worry about what people will think if you do it. I'm a case in point. I started doing this work because I had a desire to share this, but I was really worried about what it would do to the professional image of me. If I was talking about something so human psychology related, could I still be a consultant and respected and professional? Of course, my fear was unfounded. It served me more than well. People I used to work for at the time would come and attend my talks, and it was an honor. But go beyond the thing that stops you from giving. And the thing that I always ask myself when the fear kicks in again is, what would I love to serve? How can I serve here? How can I best serve this person? And how can I serve me? That one word was the word I took in my mind when I went for that interview I mentioned, where I got the job for me. That one word is the thing I bring to stage every time when I worry about how things might go wrong, or will I serve my audience, will I not? Doesn't matter. What would I love to serve? And what can I give now? And again, remember, I'm not overgiving because I'm in line with my yeses and my nos. But give freely, serve freely. And I just want to end by saying thank you so much to the team and to all of you on the line here for allowing me this opportunity to serve you. Of course, our journey need not end here. Please do reach out. Please do connect. I know the team has shared my contact details with you. This is just the very tip of the iceberg. There's a whole wonderful world of possibility when we start to live without fear. So thank you very much again. And I'm going to hand back to you, Urvashi, and happy to answer any questions at all. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Stuti. This was very, very informative. I think the last 4 points that you say or mentioned, which is saying yes, saying no, or ask, and the give. The give is the point that I really, really like personally. I think to give without expectation is something we really have to do more often. And this is definitely a point that I'm going to take away for tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time off. I have one question for you. So we say we are born without any fear, right? So what do you think then? What is it that brings fear in us? Based on your experience, what would you say? What triggers? Is it a society pressure to be successful like everybody else, or what is it? And how can we overcome that?
Yeah, Urvashi, thank you. So interestingly enough, studies show that babies are born with two fears: fear of falling and fear of loud noises. And of course, you would want any newborn creature to have some fear. It's a survival instinct. It keeps us safe. We want to move away from danger. So fear, by the way, is really normal. In fact, it's a healthy response in a fully functioning brain, in a part of the amygdala. But most of the fears we acquire in our life are not born of danger. So absolutely in line with the question, we acquire these over time. And one school of thought is, in fact, studies so far say that by the time we're about 5 years old, we've sort of tried to make sense of the world and we understand this is how it is. So, for example, and I'm going to use some stereotypes here, it applies to me as well. My parents never told me that I couldn't be whatever I want or I couldn't express myself freely in the world. In fact, they said, you must go live your dreams. The world is your oyster. But I made up that it was not my role to be an authority or to be powerful or to be expressive, because it's not women's role to do that. It's not a young person's role to do that. I need somebody who's an external authority to do that. So yes, there's a societal conditioning. Interestingly enough, our physical experiences, our physical makeup can also determine the things we're afraid of or how we believe we have to be or don't have to be. For example, if you're, as a child, you remember that you were bullied or not included or perhaps ridiculed in some way, which again, most of us were, right? So we go through a range of human experiences, but we make meaning of them in different ways. One of us might believe the way to be safe in the world is to never show any weakness. I must always be invulnerable, the most dominant person in the room. I must be the powerful authority. Hey, maybe I need to be the most successful person in the world. That's the way to be safe. Or maybe that's the way to be loved, by knowing I'm appreciated. Someone else, another one of us, will make up that the best way to be safe is to keep others at arm's length. So what can I do to make sure that I trigger you enough that you never want to get close to me? How do I push you away? Because if I push you away, then I'm safe. Because as a child, somebody hurt me. And I say as a child, and of course, our lifelong experiences add on to that. But even our physical makeup, experiences we went through, health issues we had, will all go towards showing us in our evolutionary mind how things have to be. And when we come from a point of view that this is how things have to be, is when our fears kick in. Because if this is how it has to be, I have to make it happen. So again, not, in these few minutes in this forum, it's very hard to talk about the full range of our fears and how we incorporate them and where they come from. But I absolutely agree with the question as well, that these are fears we take up. We see things based on our perception. In fact, I just completed a training on how we look at the world through perception and how we rise beyond that. Based on our perception, we'll have an experience that we'll remember, and that will build a story for us. And then we keep living out that story to say, this is how it was, this is how it cannot be, this is how I should be next time. So indeed, we accumulate the fears over a lifetime. And the key really is to look at why. Why are we doing the things we do? What would we really love? If you take away one question from this, it's what would I love? And then you can say yes to that. You can say no to what's not in line with that. You can ask in accordance with that, but you can also create it by giving, by creating a space where that is allowed to be. So Urvashi, I hope that answers the question. As you know, I'm having audio issues at my end. So I'm interpreting the question as best as I can, but I hope that does it justice.
Yes, I think it indeed. I mean, as you rightly said, there is a big vast of different types of fear that we faced from the childhood to the teenage time till all the experience, whether it's health or personal life or a professional life, and that triggers us. I think it's a vast topic for sure, but I think the way you pull it together, it definitely gives me the answer I was looking for. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and this wonderful talk. I'm definitely going to take this point of give without any expectation, as you rightly said, and try to follow much more in my daily life. And I really thank you for this wonderful talk. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a nice time.
Urvashi and team, thank you so very much. And I look forward to staying in touch. Please feel free to drop me a note and we'll create what we love without fear. So thanks very much again, folks.
Thank you. Bye. So guys, I think we are at the end of our session. I hope you guys had a lot of fun and you got to learn a lot out of all the various topics that we had for today. Right now, we have a social lounge activated, so you can go do your networking part there, or you can go out to the virtual booth, or you can also do one-on-one networking. So I hope you had a great time and see you next year. Thank you, and see you next year. Thank you. Bye-bye.